It's a good one, so please do stay with us. Our next panel and our final panel is now going to focus on the acceleration of electric mobility and the role of emerging technologies. To lead this discussion, please welcome Sal Jafar, who is the CEO of ESG MENA. A very warm welcome. And in the interest of time, I'm going to pull up your panel for you very quickly. So it's a very warm welcome to Rohit Ramesh, the Senior Product Manager of CITA EV. A very warm welcome. We have Shubham Kumar, the Chief of Innovation at LeapCharger. We also have Peter Daskalov, who is the Global Sales Team Lead at AMPECO. We also have Hubert Wolters, who is the VP of Business Development for the EMEA region at WiTricity Corp. And rounding out our panel, we have Vijay Kumar Premachandran, who is the Director of Powertech Mobility. Sal, it is now over to you. Enjoy.
Thank you.
So maybe you get up.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Peter, Shubham, Rohit, Hubert, and Vinay. Thank you very much. Well, that's the last panel or session of this wonderful EVIS 2024. We're talking a lot about charging stations, not only for the electric vehicles, but also for the commercial vehicles. We saw Al Masoud launching Dongfeng and also Renault and Volvo electric trucks. How can we expedite the implementation and having the network ready to basically cater to commercial electric vehicles? Right, tell me.
Thank you. My name is Rohit Ramesh. I'm the Senior Product Manager at CITA EV. So CITA primarily into manufacturing of electric vehicle charging infrastructure and software solutions. So as CITA, we are in close connections with all the CPO operators in the region, whether it comes for charging commercial vehicle or private vehicles in the region, and also for fleet operators. There are a lot of CPOs that is coming out in the recent time that is focusing into expansion of EV charging infrastructure across the region, especially in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, that we are seeing a lot of interaction now.
And even up to Fujairah.
Even up to Fujairah, yes.
I just came now from a meeting, and there are trucks accompanied from Fujairah to Abu Dhabi. They operate in Abu Dhabi, but they need to bring materials from Fujairah, from the remote areas or Ras Al Khaimah. So are we ready for this?
We are getting there very soon. And
what is the timeline in this regard?
So, for example, we are closely working with our partner Etisalat, which is into a new venture of Charge and Go, who's expanding the commercial as well as private charging networks. And they have a plan of having at least 1,000 sockets by the end of this year. And we are currently in the process of mobilizing these projects with our partner. And several other CPOs like Diva is also coming up with new stuff, and ADNOC is coming up with new stuff. So either it's private, for driving private vehicles, it is becoming much more easier now. And also for commercial vehicles, they are unable to use the Tesla superchargers, but now they are finding fast charging stations around, which is making it easier for them to operate also commercial fleets.
Shubham, in terms of technology, how are we aligning basically to ensure that the charging stations, especially the fast ones, because everyone is after the fast ones, especially when it comes to the highways and the different geographies, no one can afford waiting 8 hours. How are we in terms of technology ready to embrace and align and unify technologies to make them adaptable to fast charging stations for the small passenger cars up to the big trucks?
So that's a great question, because I get asked this a lot. For passenger cars, we've definitely made a lot of progress over the last decade. You see 10 years ago, there was a very strong resistance to EVs because of the infrastructure. And now we're at a position where people are more comfortable to buy these EVs because CPOs like LeapCharger and other major CPOs like ChargePoint, even Tesla, they've provided confidence to these people with the fast charging infrastructure. So now Tesla superchargers, they can go up to 250 kilowatt DC power, which there wasn't that many in the UAE before 2017 at all, because that's when they entered. So for passenger vehicles, we're definitely almost there to the point where, you know, we're commercializing these EVs to a point where they can almost replace these fuel cars as well. But for EV trucks as well, like he said, we are getting there, and there are some very new innovations. For example, battery swapping technology. Now, it's not as straightforward as the EV cars, whereas these trucks, they have much heavier batteries, much larger. So you need much more heavy machinery to operate and remove these batteries from the truck and to place a new one back. And that, of course, requires a significant upfront investment, way more than typical passenger vehicle charging or any other charging system.
Yeah. Peter, basically, when it comes to payment, you know, we're talking about different, basically, types, different cultures driving those commercial vehicles, electric commercial vehicles. Are we ready, basically, to have a simplified payment system for different languages or for people who might have challenges even in English or in Arabic? What is the status in this regard? Are we getting very smooth and ready?
I would say that based on our company's experience all over the globe, so we operate in more than 50 countries at the moment, there are specifics to every market. And I would say that what the UAE should do is to be able to enable people that want to use specific like charging payment methods, enabling them to do so. So specifically our experience in Europe. In Europe, people use applications widely, but people also have turned to payment terminals, to QR code payments, to Apple and Google Pay, and basically all of those should be available, but it's up to the market, it's up to the UAE to choose the right way, to choose the path with less friction. So I would say in that terms, since the UAE is very highly technologically developed in terms of software, this and all of those variants of payments are available here. So I would say that a lot of companies are going into the market.
Yeah. We are seeing lots of basically hacking and wrongdoings when it comes to the payment system worldwide, and even intruders from abroad into the local system. Are we ready to embrace a very solid payment system, very safe?
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, based on our experience in Europe, there is a fair regulation that is coming in, and that regulation also states stuff like dynamic QR codes, stuff like specific payment terminals and specific encryptions that will make sure that the payments will be safe and secure. And we believe that such systems could be implemented here in the UAE that will make sure that the citizens and visitors will pay without any friction.
Yeah. Hubert, coming all the way from Germany, basically we know that the autobahns, the highways are quite vast and also with different models. How do you foresee basically the implementation of fast charging stations, and what can we learn from the German experience in this regard?
Yeah. So I work for WiTricity, is a Boston-based, US-based company, and we do wireless charging, so inductive charging. There's no cable connection to the car. So we, as a company, focus on 11 kilowatt, 22 kilowatt level 2 charging. Yes. So it's more the home, work, and all this charging, and higher power is possible too. But the receiver size gets a little bit bigger when you go for higher power, but technically there's no limitations. On so for us, the home charging or level 2 charging is big enough of a business when you look at some people mentioned it today, charging activities, especially in Germany, it's I think even 80 to 90% is level 2 charging versus fast charging. But yeah, fast charging in Germany as a question on the market, I think in Europe overall it got sponsored a lot. I think we had overall for infrastructure, also for home charging, we had a lot of incentives. I mean, Norway is a different example. It's not paying, but their tax reductions and all this made some good progress. I think there is good examples and good stories to take over, including having the relationships to the government, to big fast charging providers like Ionity, where several OEMs are involved. So I think they made it work in a way that it can be copied over to, and you are working on it already.
Vinay, what can you tell us in this regard, in terms how can we expedite the implementation and installing charging stations, especially for the vehicles, for the commercial vehicles?
If it's talking about commercial vehicle, I think so. Prior to commercial, we should also look at the fact that if you really want to expedite the journey of EV adoption in the region, need to understand the market you are working in. Mostly, if you look at UAE compared to other places in Europe, owning an EV is not a necessity over here. It's more of a second or a third car in every family. So, which means purchasing power is high up there, and there is no incentive technically to own an EV. It's more of having a second or third car. And I feel the price points of the OEM car manufacturers are still not an affordable range. So as soon as we target the middle class, which is the sub 100,000 dirham car brackets, I feel then there is an actual need to go for a second car or even the first car. So then we look at the charging infrastructure because the demand is there. So it starts with that, and then it moves on to commercial.
Rohit, we're seeing, we just had really massive rain, as you know, floods, and very soon we'll be having lots of sunshine already with very high temperatures, plus 50, plus 55, or up to maybe plus 60. We are seeing a lot of manufacturers and models. We are seeing from Europe, we're seeing from the US, we're seeing from China, we're seeing from Vietnam, from Sri Lanka. Every day we are seeing in a very open market such as UAE's market, every day we are seeing a new model, a new manufacturer. How can we ensure that the quality basically of those charging stations are adequate, one? And are there any parameters in this regard to ensure that?
Sure. So as you already mentioned, like there are several different manufacturers have come in a very short span of time, and they have different configuration requirements and so on, and quality of product and production depending on focusing certain market, but trying to penetrate into every market with the same product line, right? So as CITA, we have been testing our product in the region for a long period. And we understand what is the situation here in terms of heat and in terms of dust as well in the region, and how do we maintain this equipment. So it's the knowledge sharing to the partners and operators, how to maintain this equipment in a proper way with regular cleaning of filters, air cleaning, and having the right cooling mechanism internally to maintain the ambient, internal ambient temperature adequate to operate without derating. And if there is a derating, how do you handle the situation and how frequent the derating is. So the feedback and response is really important to understand it. And we have improved our product over time to tackle this. I'm sure every other manufacturer is doing the same to understand who is focusing on this market especially. And yes, so there are certain criteria when it comes to like handling water or dust and things, like having the breakers installed internally at a certain height. So if there is a rise of water during rain, so it does not get in contact with any electrical components, and having the right IP rating on the hardware, so it is having the capability to handle the heat dissipation and the cooling mechanisms. These are the lot of categories that people are now started looking. Initially, it was not there. The operators were not keenly looking into how this hardware operate.
And now it is.
Now they are started after the experience.
Asking.
After the experience, they're starting to understand which ones are working, which ones not, and they are trying to improve and give feedback to the manufacturers. In terms of standardization in the region, we are seeing only a standard of IEC 61851 compliance to get any local standardization. However, there is
it's not really comprehensive.
It's not really comprehensive as of the moment, because if you look into countries like Europe, UK, where they have a standard for private home charging as well as public charging, right? So recently there was a regulation that came out in November 2023 in the UK for public charging infrastructure, which needs to have access to all the type of people, even if it's a disabled person. How do you access the charger? Is the interface or the connector is in the right range for you to access? And is it having a payment system that is easy for everyone to pay? Does it have a payment terminal attached to it? Or is it having a simplified system? So all these things are regulated in certain countries, and only those compliant hardwares are being installed in the public areas.
Shubham, what can you tell us from your experience? How are you ensuring optimized quality, basically, of the technology that you are offering in this regard?
So in terms of quality, there's two things we like to look at: the end user experience. So first of all, of course, we have a user-friendly application. So we understand that there are people who don't know how EV charging works at all.
Absolutely.
Like they're newbies to this industry. They just bought an EV, and definitely there are some pros to EVs. For example, cheaper running costs. So of course, electricity will always beat the petrol prices, and they've bought the EV for that reason. So of course, that's where the advertising display that we employ in our charging station comes into hand, because not only is that used for advertising and making revenue for these small businesses who have these parking lots where these charging stations are attached, we're able to educate users on how to use these stations effectively, as well as our app goes through each and every process so that the user is able to understand and not only use our network, but other networks as well. So we're fostering that level of user attention across all of our charging stations.
Yeah. Peter, I mean, you're based in Bulgaria, in Europe. How do you basically consider aligning your quality standards across different geographies, different weather conditions, and all that? What is your strategy in this regard?
So basically, as a company, we're providing predominantly software, so we're only software providers. So this is something that is a hurdle to the customers of AMPECO, which are the operators. I would say that the main thing that we do for them is to assist them to choose the right manufacturers, and ensuring the seamless communication between the software, the card, the application, and the charger is what we focus on. So by testing out like specific OCPP, the Open Charge Point Protocol. Yeah.
How is the training program for your own customers, for example? You're selling here, or you have customers in the UAE or other parts. What is the type of training you are offering to ensure a seamless program or a seamless work in terms of applying the softwares?
Yeah, so basically what we do is we assign specific team to every customer, and we train them on the basics and then on the advancements of the technology that they will be using. For that regard, they're trained how to use the software, how to use the payment terminals, how to use the payment gateway that we have integrated for them, and this will enable them a seamless operation. In regards to the chargers, what we do is we assign an integrations team that will make sure that the chargers that the specific company have chosen are the right one for their business model by testing out the specific commands and the specific protocols that will ensure that the business model will be successful for this company.
Yeah, Hubert, coming all the way from Germany, also you work for an American company in Boston. How can we try to unify the quality standards, basically, across the different geographies and implement them and bring them to this part of the world?
Yeah, so for us, very interesting, as our background was in IP licensing. We have 1,300 patents in wireless power transfer. We also were in other markets, industrial automation, medical, but since 2022, when Siemens came on board as an investor, and but also other companies like Foxconn and Toyota, we start producing or developing a product hardware on the charger side, as well as the receiver in the car. So we have to fulfill all automotive standards now as well. So also with the production facility, we work with a manufacturing partner in Asia who are delivering to the automotive world, but we had to hire a lot of people externally, from a tier one supplier to the automotive world.
So which standards are you using basically across the different geographies? Are you setting your own standards, or for example, you prefer the American standards, European EU standards?
So for the wireless charging itself, we put a lot of our IPs and patents into a global standard organization. So it's SAE, it's ISO, it's GB in China, and we had to do that because when you want an ecosystem of charging providers, of tier ones and the OEMs to work together, you have to have a global standard. It has to be interoperable so that different tier one solutions, different OEMs and different infrastructure providers and car models work together. So we brought this in as a focus in a global standard, and we put lots of technology in to make this happen. And otherwise on automotive, there are global standards also for the automotive world, which we have to fulfill, from ISO up to all the automotive standard organization. We also work with external companies coming in, training our own people in Boston. I missed one yesterday because I was...
Thank you. Vinay, what is your take on this one in terms of quality assurance?
So,
amid all the rain.
So we are not a manufacturer, as most of you know. We are a installer. So we work with ABB, GVIS, a brand from India, Exicom, and another brand from China. So
amid all those brands, we need to unify and ensure one system in place.
So the most standard thing what we usually do is we ensure that the products are first passing the Abu Dhabi standard, that's the ADQCC standard. Post that, we do a lot of testing by ourselves in this temperature, because summer in UAE is not like summer in London. You know, and the ambient temperatures of these chargers go up to 65 degrees in certain locations, even though it's under a shade. So at that time, there are, doesn't matter what the brand is, there is always going to be some level of failure. But how we negate that is we have a very strong service team. So we are always the first respondent. And I always believe whichever brand you go with, more than the IEC standards or the quality of the product, you should have a partner who is very well versed in the troubleshooting. Because at the end of the day, they are electrical components. They are going to fail one way or the other. But how do you respond?
So are you having dialogues with the authorities basically to set standards, for example, and try to unify? Do you foresee a GCC unified standard in this regard?
GCC...
Because we are seeing this in buildings, we are seeing this in the ESG reporting across the central banks. What about transportation?
I mean, to be honest, Saudi has its own standards, the SASO certification.
And mostly because, as you know, the GCC League is based out of Riyadh. So, but do you foresee something related to transportation and electric transportation, mobility?
I mean, at least the one thing which we are all unified is, in this part of the region, the charging standard is CCS2. So we are moving away from CHAdeMO and GBT, which I feel is a good platform to start with. But in terms of regulation, I think so every country has its own idea.
And in the case of UAE, every emirate, so to speak.
Yes, yeah.
All right. Okay.
Can I add something?
Please.
Because
what is the yes?
WiTricity again, and but it was interesting when we upfit certain existing vehicles as well with a receiver for wireless charging. In the US, you can just do it and drive the car because it's from an insurance viewpoint, a different topic. When we did this in Germany, it took us many months to get all the approvals. So we have the receiver in the car, but we also, the infrastructure you need in the US, UL certification, we need CE. In Europe, you need other certifications, and Germany may be most difficult. We also have a pilot in Switzerland now. When the TUV comes in, CE certification you need, but when you do that the first time, Switzerland did a great job. It's an energy utility company, so they talk to the Federal Office of Energy, they talk to the Federal Office of Material Science and Technologies, and then even the Federal Office of Communication came in because of electromagnetic waves. But you had to do that, but we did it in a way together with one partner who had all the connections, so I think this is a model, it's a success story which we can bring over to other countries as a best practice.
As you know, UAE is trying to embrace the world's best practices. UAE, is government is trying its best to embrace the world's best practices. So they roam the world, they see what Singapore is doing, what the EU is doing, what the UK is doing, what the United States is doing, Japan, and so forth. Are we going to see, or does the EU have any unified sets and regulations in this regard and standards?
For things like I mentioned before, yes. And now the question is how can you map that over here? I'm not too much in, but I work and I have some potential partner companies even here today who understand this locally. So I have to work as a US or European. We have the success story, we have the best practice. I know how to bring it over, but now I have to understand this region and find the right partners to support. But it's essential, otherwise you run into some walls somewhere.
Rohit, we are now talking about solar charging or hybrid.
Right.
In the remote areas. Also in the previous panel, we saw that they are trying to have a roaming system for the GCC, so getting more aligned for the long future. Are we ready in the UAE to have more and more fast charging solar stations? We have seen that, by the way, in Lebanon, in the Middle East, because of the power shortage from the government, also in Jordan. Are we going in the GCC? Are we ready to deploy? Is there an appetite for that? Either solar or hybrid?
I think solar would not be a choice of GCC as per our experience of studying so many projects. We had gotten a lot of requirements when we want to do a project study for implementing a solar infrastructure for EV chargers. The capacity of fast charging is really high, and the number of solar panels that you need to deploy for them is extremely high. And also, UAE is a region where you have a lot of dust. So the maintenance for these solar panels is also high. And you need to also consider that the cost of electricity here is still not that expensive compared to EU and other countries. So it is much more practical to implement fast chargers using the grid compared to solar or hybrid power. However, we do see initiatives from our partners where they are trying to use hydrogen and other types
but
of...
But still not yet
it's still
deployed.
not yet something...
In the making.
In the making, but we don't see it as in practical implementation as of the moment. But we would be seeing a lot of grid implementation for the moment, but eventually we will be seeing a partial, like a hybrid combination. So you would be seeing like solar power used during the day and maybe grid during the night has a hybrid
But also
system.
the energy storage factor.
Energy storage factor is high.
Just wanted to add on that as well. You know, in the UAE, as of right now, you're not allowed to sell the electricity as well. It's supposed to go back to the grid, and this is the case with many.
But this is gradually changing for the industrial sector.
Definitely. So the demand is growing, right? Right now, even for the EVs, the demand always outpaces the supply of the EV charging. And so, you know, there's cities like the Sustainable City Dubai. So they're a fully sustainable powered city. But at the end of the day, the energy is going back to the grid, and then it's coming back to them in the form of that grid energy. So yes, they are being net zero, and hopefully soon the UAE will implement a way for fast charging to take place, for charging stations to be implemented with solar panels, just like how they are in the US as well. There's a company called Beam that also implements solar panel-enabled fast charging stations.
Peter, are we flexible to deploy technology, to link technology to solar or hybrid or anything in this regard?
I would say that definitely the region allows that, and I would say that definitely the technology is there. For example, our customers, they done such implementations in Mexico, in southern parts of Europe, specifically in Australia as well. So definitely the technology is there, and if there's like willing to do that, it's not a hard task.
Even Schneider Electric, next to my house in Dubai, on Sukain Road, Jubair Road, they have two solar charging stations. Hubert, what about? Are we ready for that? Basically, hybrid / solar, preferably solar, but at least hybrid.
Yeah, it's one of our favorite topics. It's not just solar. In Europe, we have all this dispersed energy generation, which can be wind, solar, something else, and you know. Due to the geopolitical situation, Germany doesn't have resources, we don't have gas, but also other European countries, and we need to find a different way of getting basic energy, electric energy supply. Storage is the best one, and we have a lot of solar, we had a lot of wind, but we need to store it, and vehicle-to-grid offers it now.
That's the name of the game.
Yes.
Energy storage.
And the good thing is with wireless, we just connect always to the grid. We don't, people, it's a user behavior thing. People most likely would not plug in the cable when the batteries are full. When we park the car, it's automatically connected. So with that, we maximize the connection to batteries and to the grid. And in just Germany, I think the number is 1.2 million cars with 50 kilowatt hours batteries is more energy storage capacity than we have with all our pump storage capacity. So it's huge when you think about tens of millions of cars. Yeah. And that's a very important point. We have the product on the roadmap. Next year we will have a prototype for vehicle to grid. And the nice, talking about best practice transfer is there are companies like Octopus Energy in the UK. Here, but it's amazing new ways.
And they are here, by the way, with TACA.
Yeah.
They have a partnership, and they are very much in Abu Dhabi.
And it's amazing when you do it the right way. In the UK, they have the first examples where at the right time, at the right location, the end user of an electric vehicle can charge their car for free. In some cases, depending on how much sun and wind you have, you get paid for it. But this is amazing. So we also work with utilities now, and I think there's even a possibility to change the business model. The nice thing is the batteries in the cars are paid already, versus stationary storage
Especially
somewhere else.
Especially in the UK, amid the weather, which is very...
I think the business model could be as crazy that the subscription to an energy supplier is covering already your infrastructure cost and things like this at home or at work. It's really a new world. But a lot of people jump on it. They want a big piece of the pie too.
Vinay, are you ready basically to deploy hybrid or solar?
I'm somebody being here on the ground, and I can tell you from 2006, there was a time when everybody thought solar was the new golden boy, and people were rushing into solar. But right now, I believe in the EV industry, it is a no-brainer because you remove a lot of the pressure on the grid by going into off-grid charging. It's the smartest thing to do, and it's clean energy. So I believe that a lot of off-grid solutions should be there if the entire country as a whole wants to expand. And it also helps a lot of the commercial charging infrastructure, where, in remote areas, just pulling 200 kilowatt power into the middle of the desert where, a truck can stop and recharge, it's no-brainer to have a solar-backed ESS solution. So it is right there, the answer is right there in front of us, but we need a unified policy because you can't sell electricity as an individual or a private company in the UAE because it's a government entity. So those are the small changes in the policies which would help all of us.
I wonder who will take first the wireless basically topic. This is a very interesting wow topic. Why? Because we know that in the UAE we have the number one, the first aerial taxi, the tallest, the number one, and it works. It works very well because look at the economy, mashallah, that's doing very well, and all the records. However, when it comes to wireless, we saw that in Sweden, for example, lanes. We saw in Dubai some lanes for buses in Dera or in Dubai. Are we ready in the UAE to have lanes for wireless charging?
So there are several use cases. So one, like I mentioned, is the level 2, what we call static or semi-dynamic charging, which can be at home, at work, and things like this, or taxi waiting lines, where you have one ground pad and the next one in line for the wait line. Then there's full dynamic wireless charging. I mean,
which we aim for, like what is in Sweden.
Yeah, I know, and there have been test tracks in France, in Italy, in the US now too, and a former company, Qualcomm...
And maybe for electric buses, don't forget.
Qualcomm
like
Automotive.
in Europe.
So technically it works. And some of our partners are working on it. Actually, we acquired a group from Qualcomm Automotive who did this as well in France. So it works, but you have to dig up the street. You have to put copper or even aluminum, whatever, throughout the streets. And what I have seen, it's miles of test trails and tracks, but no one went into scaling the business. I mean, if it comes, we will do it, but right now we as WiTricity don't focus on it, but technically...
It's not very viable, not very feasible?
And it's technically feasible. I don't know if the investment, there's really a return of investment, but if you build a complete new city part or part of a city, maybe
for Masdar City or for...
well, the UAE may be interested because...
Or NEOM in Saudi or Global, Red Sea Global.
So what we think with static charging and semi-static charging, what we call opportunity snacking or power, it's opportunity snack or power snacking we call opportunity charging. So wherever you stop, even for fleet vehicles, when you stop 10 minutes for loading, offloading over there, you charge all the time already. But if you need it fully in the roads, I doubt, but technically, if it is coming, we will go there too.
Yeah. Anyone who can speak on or talk on wireless? Oh, all right. Okay. Green finance, basically, the market across the different is really fluctuating. It's getting cheaper, cheaper, cheaper. How do you maintain the quality amid all those basically price war? And in terms of financing the charging stations, do you see that this is something that would be smoother in this part of the world?
We are already seeing a lot of EV charging operators that is coming out and ready to invest in this charging infrastructure, whether it's in a public or a private area, considering that there is potential in the market. And also a lot of housing associations and property developers and hospitality groups are approaching the CPOs for them to invest in the infrastructure in a model of revenue sharing or something that could benefit both parties at the same time. Because if you have to ask for an individual property owner or a developer to invest on a massive infrastructure and the ability to operate it in the best way possible, it would not be possible for everyone. So the means of CPOs coming into the picture and investing in this infrastructure is growing, and a lot of green fund is being invested in the private and the public sector as well. The government is also allocating so many projects, and the UAE is specifically having a vision 2030 for a more sustainable mobility. Is driving this all together as a team of so many entities coming together for this initiative. I'm sure more CPOs are coming. In this event, the Ministry of Energy also launched a CPO where they are offering fast charging solutions in public areas, and so this is going to grow.
Because the cost, people prefer the regular charging because no one wants to pay, and not to one, but many don't wish or are not ready to invest for fast charging stations. This is the problem. And we are seeing more and more longer queues, even for taxis at malls everywhere.
Exactly. So it depends on the CPO and the investment and the availability of power as well, because not all the infrastructure has already been designed to adapt to a fast charging solution. This is also a constraint from the infrastructure, not just from the feasibility of bringing in hardware or investing on it. So that is a major concern right now that we are facing, but that is going to be eventually resolved in collaboration with energy providers like ADDC and DEWA, where they are building substations to cater to this.
I can see Shubham talking basically in this regard. Tell me.
Yeah, there's a bit of still resistance, because it's not easy to understand the concept of how CPOs are going to come in and they're going to install this charging station in your parking space, whether, let's say, for example, you own a restaurant business. So you need to understand the value of the demand that's coming in. And it's hard because not everyone has an EV, not everyone understands how needed the charging infrastructure is. However, there are businesses, there are property developers who understand that this, by installing a station in this area means that traffic is going to be diverted to my building and that it's an advantage. So a CPO can invest in this charging station, and at the end of the day, they do revenue sharing. That also brings the topic of power availability, because in countries like, for example, India, power is a big problem. Now, the UAE is fortunate enough because we do have power availability in many areas, so we are able to scale this network much faster.
Peter, coming basically you as a company service provider to this part of the world, are you seeing that the green financing is easy and smooth compared to the rest of the world?
I would say
Such
that
as Europe?
Yeah, so again, coming from experience from Europe, US, Australia, all over the globe, I would say that more and more companies are investing into their own EV charging operator businesses. And this is a good thing because our experience shows that the largest players are hesitant to go in, but once they go into the market, then we see the huge uptake. Then we see the wide adoption, then we see the DC chargers being installed, then we see the fleets going into the market, then we see the destination charging, and all of this unifies basically the network, all this unifies, and it allows more and more EVs to come into the market.
Hubert, how do you basically compare to the United States, Germany, and this part of the world? Do you think that financing and conducting business and securing the green funds in this part of the world is smooth compared to the rest of the world?
I think for us having investors from Japan via Asia, via Europe to the US, I think it's globally a big, well, we're in an automotive transition and all that, but there's a lot of investment going in, and I think it's not such a regional thing. We also have talked to, well, potential investors, as we, by the way, will have a new funding around Series C funding. The potential candidates I see already coming from the whole world, also from this region. So and we are all about faster adoption of electric vehicles. This user experience is improving. With that, you get a faster adoption. I think they are coming from everywhere, also from this region.
Vinay, tell me, how is the financing world doing for you?
I mean, we do offer lease finance for our customers.
With banks or how? With a specific
so through a private entity. They're not a bank, they are a financing entity. So
like
they,
what?
They finance
financing
overall.
houses?
Sorry?
Finance houses? What type?
No, not finance houses. What they do is they finance machineries for companies worldwide. Mm-hmm. So what we do is we do a 4-year lease, and at the end of the 4th year, we give the customer an option to take back the EV chargers and refresh the chargers and continue the lease, which I feel a lot of people are not taking advantage of it because the speed in which technology is changing, it's always good to be asset light rather than, own the entire EV charging structure. I mean, that's why Uber is so successful. They don't own any taxis.
Yeah. Thank you. My last question is about, which is very common, as you know, in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, even in Sharjah, we have those huge towers. Yes. So, for example, for someone who has a villa, it's not a problem. Relatively, it's quite easy. How can we basically, in terms of technology, since this is the theme of our panel, how can we expedite the implementation and installation of fast charging stations in those towers?
I think
what are the best solutions? Please.
I think so. I'll take this one because I get this question on a daily basis. You'll be shocked to know that probably 50% of the high-rises in Dubai, I can say of Dubai, is they don't have power.
Yes.
But, some of these...
But it's time now. I mean, Tesla has been for more than 8 years in UAE.
Because we are right now
vehicle, so
in the retrofit segment. So these towers, when they were initially built, there was no allocation given for EV chargers to be installed. So if you're lucky, if the FM team can help you find some power, we will install.
Or the facility management company of that building, of that tower?
Yes. Sorry?
The facility management companies.
Yes. So they are the ones which we coordinate with. if you're lucky, if the tower...
Are they flexible? Are they ready to help?
They are ready to
accommodate,
help.
or just tell them, no, sir, that's
No,
it?
they are ready to help provided there is power. If there is no power, then the entire... Most of them are freehold also. I'm not talking about the tenanted one. Yes. Once a freehold properties, you deal with the owners association.
Yes.
So, you know, they're willing to give the money to get the upgrade from Diva. Then we install. We have done that for quite a few communities. But the tenanted ones where you're paying rent, you basically don't have much of a choice unless the landlord decides, okay, let me add value to my tenants and install a few charges. You know, so it's a little bit of a tricky situation, but you know, you're at the...
Anyone?
I definitely agree with that because actually we're also dealing with, we realize that's a problem.
Sorry, usually landlords, especially, they don't want more headache.
Correct.
So this is no, means no, sir, that's it. So how can we have a breakthrough?
So actually, I definitely agree with his point of view because we've also been dealing with many developers, mostly the high-rise towers. In fact, right now we have already finalized for a building in Dubai Sports City, which is already finishing their construction. So it's the right time to start the groundwork for and do the allocation for that EV charger. It's a perfect time rather than those which are retrofitting in all the already existing buildings. So going forward, all these new projects that are coming in Dubai, they should already be thinking forward about, you know, okay, we should have the groundwork for the EV chargers done. We should keep excess power for these EV chargers done. In terms of innovation, yes, we can have DC fast charging infrastructure in these towers, but I feel that it would be more effective if we first targeted the AC chargers, because like you rightly said, in a villa, I can charge overnight my car and go back out on the road at 9 a.m. tomorrow to work. But I can't do the same in an apartment. I would have to go out just like any other petrol pump, which is not that effective, especially in some parts of Dubai and the UAE where even Tesla superchargers are not available. So I guess the first step would be to target the AC chargers in these new residential properties that are coming up. So at least the people who own these apartment buildings, who are living in these apartment buildings, they have the confidence to go out and buy an EV and come back home every night and say that, okay, I can charge at home without any problems.
Yeah, and what about the old continent? I remember in Sofia, all those basically old buildings. So how they are quite old, you know, and now they have new EVs.
Yes.
So what is the solution?
I would say the solution is not fast charging. The solution is changing the mindset of the customer, and adapting the mindset of the customer is the way to do it. So fast charging is not the solution. The solution is charging at all. I think that all of us can agree that chargers should be everywhere. And from Europe, our experience is the following. So the charger implementation goes everywhere, in the supermarket, in your office building, at your home, at your local parking.
But this should be extra, usually, exactly like your mobile phone. You charge your mobile phone either preferably at home overnight or maximum at work. So going to a restaurant, please, I ran out, give me charger, is an extra, right?
Absolutely.
So we need to ensure that at home is the right place. So what are you doing in this regard?
In this regard specifically, I would give a great example from the Nordics. Nordics, as you know, is one of the best developed places in the world in terms of EV charging. So what they have done and what we have achieved is the integration with marketplaces that are called, for example, Nord Pool, that is able to pool the day-ahead prices, and based on that, they're able to provide the lowest prices possible for the home users that are willing, that are choosing to charge at home. This is the first step. Then the second step is, for example, the open ADR standard, which focuses on the integration between the CPOs and the utilities, which will provide the CPOs with the power to turn off specific chargers in specific regions in order to balance the grid.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for our panelists. And here, I mean, we come to the end of our panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and what an incredible way to end the summit, EVIS here for 2024, although we haven't finished yet as we have some awards to hand out, so please do stay with us. But in the meantime, what a fantastic final session there on energizing the future and the acceleration of electric mobility and emerging technologies. Thank you to Sal Jafar and his panel, very insightful indeed. Any further questions? Please do make sure to speak to any of our panelists as they come off the stage. Let's hear it one more time for our panel. Thank you. Yes, what an encouraging 3 days that we've had. We've covered absolutely everything that you can imagine when it comes to electric vehicles. Thank you so much for your support and for staying with us to the bitter end. Thank you so much.